Feeling good, wanna feel great. Longevity starts, don't hesitate. Too much noise, what do you choose? Trendy hacks, conflicting news. Skip the myths, come hear what's true. From world-class experts straight to you. First and third Thursdays, 7 p.m. Science, health, and our team. Brain to heart, from food to rest. Live the talk on living your best. Thursdays at 7, we'll see you there.
What needs to happen to really drive change in your country you are living in?
Yeah, we had discussions with the leaders in our institutes and the university. We believe how to have a good communication with the politicians could be the most efficient and effective way, including to have them to allocate more money for basic research, as well as to invest more money to build more nursing homes, to change people's attitude of life, rather than to treat a disease, but to prevent a disease.
Welcome everyone to the NUS Healthy Longevity webinar by the Yongyeo Lin School of Medicine. I'm Kamil Pabis, a final year PhD student here at the center. You might remember me from prior episodes or as a host of local longevity events in Singapore. I will be today hosting and moderating because Professor Brian Kennedy, Professor Andrea Meyer are at an important internal event that they could not reschedule. So before we start, I wanted to remind everyone that we are also on YouTube, and you saw a clip from an earlier episode. So if you ever miss us, do check us out on YouTube, and also please remember to like and to subscribe to the channel to show your support. And today we will have a talk by Mr. Shantanu Kumar. And before we get started with this, my colleague, Dr. Weilan Wang, who is a senior research fellow, will give a brief presentation about her work, and later she will also moderate audience questions.
Hi, I'm Dr. Weilan Wang. I'm working here as Senior Research Fellow at the NUS Academy for Healthy Longevity and also Healthy Longevity Translational Program at the NUS. Most of my work focusing on the biomarkers of aging and also data analysis from data collected in cohort studies and RCTs. So instead of only focusing on one's chronological age, we are more focusing on measuring the biological trajectory of the aging process of each individual participant. So some of the biomarkers comes from clinical measurements, such as simple count group strands, and some of the biomarkers comes from laboratory assessments, and some of the biomarker comes from a multi-omics approach. Come with me to visit our clinic to see how we collect all this data. So here is our research clinic, and we have a reception. Hi, Christian. And we have our reception, so the participants will come to reception first and do all the assessments inside. And here we have a phlebotomy room. And inside this phlebotomy room, we can not only collect all the blood samples, we can also collect other samples such as saliva. And here's a small trick. After taking all the blood, and all the samples will be passed to our wet lab through this small window. This is also our gym and also our room for space for all the physical assessments. As you can see, that is very well equipped with all the facilities over here. And we now have the cycling and also the treadmill for the VO2 max. And we also have facilities for the dual tasking assessments. These dual tasking assessments will not only improve our physical activity, it also will improve our cognition by research. And we also have a few multifunction rooms here. For example, this room can not only be used as a phlebotomy room for backup, it also can be used for a lot of clinical assessments. And over here, we have another room that you can use for the BI assessments, which is a method that we can measure our body composition easily. And apart from all of our body composition, there is one very big organ that we cannot forget, which is the skin. And here we also have the skin room to do the skin assessments over here. Apart from doing research, I'm also very passionate about mentoring and supervising. I'm a manager at the Global Epigenetic Age Consortium. So in this consortium, we have over 200 members from all over the world. Together, we are running over 20 projects in different topics about epigenetic age. In this consortium, we do systematic review and meta-analysis together. So apart from giving individualized mentoring to each student, I'm also running a series of workshops in using different hands-on technologies in doing our research. So for example, in my first workshop, I talk about the statistical analysis and how to write your first manuscripts. And also, I also give a workshop in the systematic review and meta-analysis by providing a lot of templates that I found is very useful. So now let's join me to go to my next workshop. Okay, I just finished my workshop. I'm heading back to office. If you are also interested in my workshop, you can check on my LinkedIn or my YouTube channel. I feel so lucky to work in the field of health longevity because I think it may not be the optimal solution for us targeting on only one or two diseases. Instead, if you're targeting the fundamental changes along with the aging, it may help us to find a better solution to sort out the current healthy problems. See you again later as the moderator session. See you!
Wow, Waylan, I really love the view from your office. You have to give me a tour next time. But for now, let's move on to our main guest. So we will have Mr. Shantanu Kumar, who is CEO and co-founder of Xandro Lab. And their mission as a company is to produce clinically informed supplements to promote healthy aging. And they work with various partners across NUS. They're very interested in NAD boosting therapies and biomarkers of aging. And I'm very much looking forward to get sort of an insider's perspective from Shan about the supplement business today.
Thank you so much, Kamil. Glad to be here. I'll talk about what happens behind the scenes and how we make things happen. Before I start my presentation, just a quick note. I will talk a lot about some of our specific products. It's not meant to be an advertisement. It's meant to showcase how a product in the real market has happened and the process behind it and what are the new things that's happening instead of just theoretical words that may not even make sense in real life. Okay, before I jump, I should tell you guys more about me. Beyond my work, there's some interesting things that I do, and these are things that you would also you should be able to join me. So this is me outside of work. I am too much into science and fitness. I was a nerd when I was in school, and that has continued until now. So I've been in this space of nutraceuticals for now 3+ years. Before that, I was in food supply chain, and before that, it was fashion and lifestyle. Fits me quite well because what I wanted to do is chase high performance. And this entire space allows me to test out as well as get first-hand access to information which is not easily accessible and have that insider knowledge. So I spend a lot of time on understanding about all the biomarkers, longevity trackers, be it from your APO-B4 to your VO2 max training, all of that, quite into it. And I go quite technical on that part. I'm currently building a community of runners with Xandro Lab. We call it Xandro Run Club. We run every Wednesday at Stadium. So if you're into running, if you want to try out, please come join us. Beyond this, I love high rocks. It's quite painful, but it helps me test my endurance and keep the training going on. It ensures that I'm not bored with my daily training routine. With that, we'll quickly now move to the main discussion, which is how does supplements play a role in the longevity science? And I'll take you through what really happens behind the scenes. A quick background about Xandro Lab. We started in 2023. We now have 15+ products in the market. We've launched close to 25, but we've also discontinued a number of them, and we focus on a very specific set of products. Last year, we shipped to 40 plus countries across the world. All of this going from Singapore. I'm quite happy and proud that we had interest from across the world. And at this point of time, we have 2+ active research partnerships. One is with NUS, and I'll talk about it. One more is being discussed with an industry partner, and many more coming up. So the base of the company is quite science-led. We're always trying to generate as much evidence as possible and inform our consumers as well as inform our product development process. Some quick things about us. Our manufacturing is GMP certified, so we make our products in Singapore. The formulations are based on, again, we look at what are the clinical dosages and the quality of the study. It's just one random study does not inform or strengthen a formula. We actively invest into research. That's been a big foundation for the company. Right now, I think some of the members here would also be part of this RCT that we are running for NAD+. It's a first human RCT which looks at NAD+ in Singapore. I'll talk in detail about this soon. The key products that we sell are Protocol X, which is the longevity blend. We have LPC Neuro, which focuses on brain longevity, specifically on how omega-3 can be delivered to your brain, crossing the blood-brain barrier. Then there's some other interesting products, which is Neuro X, which is a nootropic, NMM, magnesium glycinate, AKG. Some of these things people in this space would be quite aware of. Now, there's a lot of science about what longevity is and key the things that are looked in the lab. For example, the 6-minute walking, or there's some complicated matrix as well. But how do you translate that into everyday life for the consumers, which is where, and that is also a challenge for us as a supplement maker as to how do we really show the benefits. We can't just say, okay, this study had this much benefit in this particular marker, you should also see benefits. How does it really translate? So translating that longevity into health span refers to how do we showcase that into everyday lifestyle matrix. So by the way, cognitive function is something big for us, and we're working out a few tests on it so that you can actually get to understand how are you doing on that part. Sleep is a big part of your health span. Energy and vitality, you can also, this can also be measured with VO2 max as well as NAD+. Now, NAD+ testing is not widely available, but we have access to it and we do it for a few consumers. Joint and recovery is essentially inflammation and the pain biomarkers. Muscle and bone is slightly more developed, with DEXA being there, grip strength, and a few others which is there. There is metabolic health, cardiovascular health, and inflammation. Most of these can be measured. Cognitive function is something which is in works. It can be measured, but it's slightly more complicated. But in simple, our job is to translate that science in the papers to real everyday impact that you see on yourself, and something you can also share with everyone else. Now, I'll talk about how we created Protocol X. Protocol X is a longevity blend, and it has multiple ingredients. It has many challenges, and I'll talk about how we started with it and how did we solve, how are we solving that. Now, how did we start making Protocol X? Protocol X essentially comes in a single sachet that you drink in this bottle. Now, we first start with the mechanism as to this is supposed to be for longevity, for lifespan, for health span, and it can't be done in a single pathway. So we have to look at multiple pathways. That then brings us to, okay, what are the compounds which can possibly help in this? For example, brain benefits, choline is good. For muscle, there is hyaluronic acid and collagen boosters. For energy and ATP and NAD plus pathway, you will look at NMM. We also look at creatine for cognition as well as bone and muscle benefit. So that becomes the background work. Then we look at what is the right dosage. When we began at a constant. For NMM we began at 250 mg per day, and in a third version now we have increased it to 400 milligrams. So a lot of this is also what is there in the research paper versus what is the feedback that we're receiving from the consumer. So you can almost say that some of this is happening real time. Now, before the formula came into being and it was finalized, it went through a scientific advisory board. We had 4 people in that, including a medical doctor, nutritionist, and research specialist. And they had their expert input into what should be done, what shouldn't be done, what is right, not right, the questions on ingredient. In fact, one example is CoQ10, which is popular, comes in 2 formats, ubiquinol and ubiquinol being the more bioactive version. So this was one of the recommendations. So we changed the format over there. Now, all of this, after the formula comes into being, we put it to manufacturing in a GMP certified facility, and people who can handle mixtures, because this is quite a complicated blend, cannot be done at every place. So those are other challenges which we'll talk about in a different session. Now, this gives you a quick perspective of how we look at the evidence summary of all the ingredients that we have in Protocol X. Not all of that is there, but if you look at NMM, it has initial RCTs, there's vivo studies, there's in vitro studies. Same with taurine, calcium AKG, quercetin, glutamine, glycine. And then we look at what's the dosage in the studies and how much can we realistically add into the blend. So it's not always equal, but we try to be within that range of what is being tested in studies. Okay. Now, NAD plus has been a major longevity pathway that is being researched in the last few years, and we've seen benefit with the skeleton muscle, insulin sensitivity. We have benefits on the muscle strength. So the research has been building up, and that is one of the key reasons why we focus a lot more on the NAD plus pathway compared to every other pathway that we have. Now, these are some of the summaries from recent studies that we have had, where blood NMM was looked at how does it improve or change your NAD levels and the benefits you have in terms of your blood age and walking score. Now, taurine is also a big component of Protocol X, and it has the amount of evidence that's coming up is quite strong. This is one of the examples from a mice study where so a lot of how you see the formula comes up, it's based on how the studies emerge. And with Protocol X, we do one very specific thing, which is we evolve the formula. So we're right now on the 3rd version of the formula. And as new research comes up, we will increase or decrease certain portions of the ingredients. Coming to the research collaborations and ongoing studies, and this is specifically on the Protocol X side. So there are 2 main studies. The first one is a human study. We're doing it ourselves. And we're pitching 2 products, Protocol X and NMM. It's not a placebo-controlled trial. We wanted to see how does NMM work versus a blend. And we're right now about almost 5 weeks inside. End of May is when the results are supposed to come in. We'll have it internally, and then we'll work on publishing this paper. It has happened because of it has been possible due to support from a lot of people in the industry, including the lab and the clinics who are working with us. And this will be quite interesting to look at, and I have some initial results for this. I'll come down to that. So, this will only look at NAD plus. What we also doing is the second study, which we are working with NUS, and this is in lab study. We essentially again checking Protocol X versus NMM in certain human cells. Now, this is an initial results that we've received on human liver cells, where if you look at this graph, Protocol X improve the NAD levels much higher than NMM only. So the entire what we're trying to do is, should we go towards a route of blends versus single ingredients, is a big hypothesis that we are testing as a company, and which will also result into what we don't do in future with our product development. Moving on, this is another very interesting area of work where we are deeply invested. And this is to do something with a promise which has been long unfulfilled. Omega-3 being pitched as something that can help with cognition. But if you look at the studies, it has not been possible. And some significant development has happened in the last 10 years. And we've been able to commercialize one of those tech. This also shows you how new tech gets commercialized. Now, what really happened? In 2014, a group of scientists from Duke and US published that omega-3 or DHA crosses the blood-brain barrier in only one format, which is it has to be an LPC-DHA format. And there was a very specific transporter, MFSD2A, which differentiates if omega-3 is in DHA or LPC DHA format, and then allows it to enter the brain. Now, this started around 2014 at Duke and US. Since then, a lot more papers have been published on this product. And 2023 is when we were able to commercialize the ingredient. There's a lot more of work to be done on this, but we are building the entire supply chain. It was, for example, the current production was happening at Romania, and there are challenges on that as well. And now we're exploring new supply chain, which can increase the scale and possibly also make it a lot more accessible for users. So we're exploring that to do from New Zealand, which has a lot more developed krill oil supply chain. Now, I'll also talk about some more research happening in this space. Now, quick overview of how the space of omega-3 is. The stage 1 or the level 1, which is fish oil in triglyceride format. The more bioavailable format, which is the phospholipid, which is what you find in krill oil. And then the most, I call it the most advanced for your brain, which is the LPC format. Now, a quick brief about how this entire blood-brain works. Only LPC-DHA can enter this inside the brain through the blood-brain barrier. The normal free DHA cannot enter; it's blocked for them. This is the problem that LPC-DHA is solving on, and this specific ingredient solves for it. Now, what did the animal studies say? In terms of, so if you look at dietary LPC has outperformed free DHA in cognition and memory. So if you see this specific chart, these mice, the time to find the platform was many times more in case of the free DHA versus the mice with LPC DHA. So this is one example. The chart C is similar, where the mice with free DHA took much longer to find compared to the one with LPC DHA. Now, evidence is never enough, simply because unlike pharmaceuticals, which take 10 years before you establish a result and then you move on to commercializing it, commercialization and research happens simultaneously in case of supplements. So these are the 3 additional RCTs that are happening across the world right now. One at a dosage of 1.5 grams, the second being at a 3 gram, and the third being at 4 grams. All looking at different kinds of memory improvement. The first result should come out by end of 2026, early 2027. The other 2 should be in 2027. The last one possibly around 2029. So there's an active research going on in this space. And beyond that, we're also building up new research pipelines. So those were the two products, and that tells you about how the company goes about looking for new ingredients and commercializing it, and also build the evidence base around it. Now, there are challenges in the supplement market, and I'll talk about them. And a lot of this is IP related, IP plus claims related. The entire proof, or let's say claims that this can help with memory, or this can help with inflammation, this can help with pains, lies on the company. So there's very little support that you will get from the entire ecosystem. Also, because the commercial gains are concentrated with the company. You'll often also see single studies being marketed as groundbreaking research. Studies need to be reproducible, and it has to be done a few times across different places for it to be really make a lot of sense for the wider crowd. And a big example of this is magnesium threonate, which is marketed as it crosses a blood-brain barrier, and there are very limited studies on this, and all the studies are by one single company. Now, the other major challenge for us or any company in this space is you can invest on development of IP or research behind something. Very difficult to patent, and let's say if you spend on research behind magnesium glycinate, anyone can claim the results of the research. You can't really keep it to yourself because you have to make it public. And the final thing being, a lot of this is lifestyle and segregation of biomarker benefit, or let's say how does it really benefit you in terms of memory or pain reduction or vitality. Oftentimes becomes difficult beyond normal vitamin levels. Now, regulation so a bigger problem in this space is regulation across different markets is entirely different. We operate across Singapore, US, Korea, and Europe, and we have to do, and also China. Each of these markets we have to operate differently. You can't copy paste the same method or same products in all of these markets. Singapore and US I would say are less strict on supplements if you follow the right guidelines and follow their process, and also don't end up including banned substances in your product. You're good. European Union is a bit more complicated. And then when you go to Korea, they don't even allow magnesium glycinate, and they don't even allow activated vitamin B12. So each market is very unique in itself. China does not allow NMM. So each market is quite unique in itself, and you have to, you can't just randomly expand. You have to be very clear. You have to follow a very market specific approach. Now, one thing to highlight here, what Singapore bans, US may not ban, and what US bans, Singapore may not ban. Example being, case in point is berberine. Berberine is banned in Singapore for use in dietary supplements, whereas it's allowed for sale in US. Whereas NAC is also banned in Singapore, but it's allowed for sale in US and rest of the world. Moving on, where do we see the future of this entire longevity and supplements going? There are a few interesting things that we have been exploring in the last 2-3 years. And of the most biggest interest is remote clinical trials, which is people try your product and they track their numbers with Whoop, Garmin, and additional variables at their own space and time. And essentially, it's everyone doesn't have to come to the same place, and you're essentially gathering evidence over there. It's something that we're quite now going behind, and we will launch a few trials on this. In fact, some of those will start with our consumers very soon. The other major thing is brand-funded research. When we build our own IP on these blends, for example, Protocol X, that differentiates us, that makes us that shows how serious we are on the science, and it also gives people reason to believe that these products are strong. Senolytics is another area which is now becoming big, and we're also exploring that space. No product yet in this field right now, but something that we are quite keen on. There's some things that are very hard to measure. So omega-3, LPC, DHA, while the promise is big and the research is very strong, measuring it for a normal person is extremely difficult. A basic thing like omega-3 index is not readily available in Singapore. And that also does not tell you the omega-3 in the brain. So that is a problem. That is something that we always keep a lookout for, that how can we really solve this. Finally, supplements are not all. Supplement will not change your life. They are like food. They add value to what you're doing. So you need to know how your life is, how your lifestyle is, what you're eating, the nutrition. It's extremely and almost impossible to replace all the nutrients that you receive from food and convert that entirely to supplements. That's not going to happen. So if you believe you can take a greens powder and then be okay, and you will get all the new ingredients or nutrition, that's not happening. That's it from my side. We are in this space trying to advance longevity. A lot of emphasis on science, and any sort of collaboration in this space, we're open to it. Thank you so much.
All right, thank you, Shan. It's important to have this conversation because really a lot of people are taking supplements, and we will take audience questions later from Waylan Wong. But before we do that, I will start with a few questions of mine. So Shan is a good friend of mine, and he has supported the Singapore Longevity Meetup. But that doesn't mean I will go easy on you with my questions. I have some really difficult ones for you. So you mentioned briefly in the beginning the IP situation, that it's difficult to run trials because other companies can can copy from you. I'm wondering, how do you deal with this as a company, and do you have any recommendations how this could be changed? If we could change the laws.
So I think it's good and both. It's good and bad. Good because if there is you will have a lot more options and your prices will be low. So today magnesium glycinate prices are low because nobody owns the IP. Now, where can we? Okay, I look at it as two different segments. One is the commoditized space where it is for everyone and everyone will use it. It has to be as free as possible. What matters over there is quality. How do you really define what is good quality? Magnesium glycinate, for example, has many challenges, and we're trying to solve them. Then there's a space which is for a niche group of people, which is where their requirements are specific, is where we will build IP. Now, IP can be built by patenting your formula or call it proprietary formula. But personally, I'm not a big fan of proprietary formula. Now, will governments come up with law to safeguard a formula? And I don't think it's possible. It's almost like a skincare space where people can have very similar formulas. But in skincare space, you don't really divulge your entire formula. You just tell what are the actives. You don't give your entire formula. In supplement space, you give out the entire formula. So that's a big difference, where the one thing missing is companies can choose to not declare the non-actives, which is the fillers and everything else, which does not really serve purpose in the formula, which to me is a bad thing. So ideally, regulation should change to tell you everything which is there in these supplements. A smart way to protect your IP is market it faster or reach out to more audience quickly so that people know this is from you. There will be copycats, but then how much that very specific formula, how much science can you back it up with, and how much research can you back it up with, that becomes your strength. There can be some amount of more control in this space, because people look at a formula and then go to a contract manufacturer and say, okay, can you just make me this formula or something similar? That is something that needs to be possibly closed off. One way could be, before any formula goes to the market, it goes through a specific set of tests that's conducted by the government or by a not profit organization. And if it passes the safety test, and then is able to benefit certain biomarkers, should go ahead. The whole freedom to just launch without any oversight is a bit dangerous.
Yeah, I think it's a difficult question, and probably a lot of our listeners don't know, but running studies on nutraceuticals can be an order of magnitude cheaper than running pharmaceutical studies. But even then, it can be difficult to find someone who pays for it because you don't get this strong IP protection. And I think the person who can solve this problem will not only be very rich, but they will also really advance the field of health and longevity a lot. So that's left for the future.
Yeah.
A different question that I had before I maybe return to this proprietary blends was, so a lot of people I hear, doctors, but also lay people, they say, supplements don't work, they don't improve health, they cannot change longevity, sort of they produce, just expensive urine. Like, are they right? Or why do people sometimes have such negative opinions of the field? What do you think?
People have negative opinion of the field, and that translates into these opinions. My personal opinion on this is, because there are a lot of bad players in the space. So it's so free that the amount of good players versus bad players is difficult to differentiate. And then because it's marketed on health, the claims just go wild. So there's no control on how much can you claim, which creates even more negative perception of the space. Now, just exercise is also not going to help you. Physical activity is great, but can just physical activity help with the longevity? No. If you sleep for 20 hours a day, is it going to help you? No. So longevity is a mix of things, a protocol that you take care of your entire body and then track it. Supplements aid you or make it easier for you to reach those goals. A very basic example being protein. Now, you can always eat food. Protein is not questioned as much because people are familiar with it. By the way, this is another thing. Very few people are familiar with the longevity ingredients. We launched NMM 3 years ago. And even today, you'll always have a segment of people suddenly coming up and saying, oh, I discovered NMM today. Tell me more about it. So while people know about basic food, let's say, for example, protein and vitamins, very few people know about targeted interventions on longevity. And then I'll tell you one more challenge. The expectations just go wild, also from a consumer side. For example, I'll take NMM and my skin will change. No, it's not going to change. It has to, you have to make other interventions as well. So it's a mix of bad players, then the claims going wild, and the expectations also being out of the roof, and not looking at it as actually a supplement, which the word is, but rather a magical pill, which it is not.
Yeah, so one thing you mentioned were these outrageous claims, and I think it's particularly bad in the US. How do you feel about the situation here? Do you think the market is over or under-regulated, or are you happy with the current rules and guidelines?
The market is under-regulated for sure. But the interventions are much better here compared to US, for example. And by the way, the execution differs between a TikTok versus a Shopee versus websites. We have been asked to take down certain claims, and we did that. So HSA also reaches out to us sometimes, like, okay, if anything is wrong, they'll reach out and say, please change this, and we change that. There's a lot more control on retail ads compared to digital ads. So you can't just put anything on a MRT door or a big billboard, but what you put on a Facebook ad is not being controlled yet. In fact, for you to put an ad on a retail storefront or offline, you have to get a permit, you have to get an approval for what you're claiming, and you have to pay a fee for it. But the same rules don't apply on the digital marketing side, which I think is okay. Otherwise, life will be extremely painful, and we will not be able to even move ahead. There can be simpler processes, but HSA does actually give you claims that you can make. So there's a whole, so if you search for HSA allowed claims by and the ingredients, it tells you, okay, for zinc, you can say this, for vitamin A, you can say this. So a lot of those things are there. The only challenge is it's not for every, we operate in the innovation space where we pioneer new and commercialize new ingredients, new research, which will be absent in HSA rules.
Okay, just briefly, maybe with an example that could help people understand what kind of claims are allowed. So, for example, my reading of the recent Cosmos trial would be that cocoa polyphenols probably or maybe or likely reduce cardiovascular mortality. Would this kind of claim ever be allowed in Singapore, or would they say like, no, this is a disease claim?
You cannot use any major disease name. So you cannot use insomnia, you cannot say cancer, you cannot say dementia, Alzheimer's, heart stroke. You cannot use these words. In fact, joint pain also you cannot use. Pain you cannot use. If you do that, you get flagged very quickly, and they can be very big consequences the moment you get flagged.
Yeah. So on the one hand, it makes sense to protect consumers because these are not drugs, not intended to treat disease. But on the other hand, it might also be limiting if the evidence pointed in a certain direction.
Yeah. So the only thing you can possibly say is supports cardiovascular health. That's the most. You cannot say, okay, prevents stroke. That you cannot say.
All right. I'll give you one last question before we go to the audience questions. You mentioned blends and multi-component, studies with multiple drugs are also very interesting to us as researchers. I'm wondering, how do you deal sort of with the risk of unintended interactions? Do you do like a small test run with the blend? How do you prepare for this?
So that's the formulation science, because you can't just add everything. We've had experiences where the formula never went out of lab because the ingredient is hygroscopic in the sense it absorbs moisture right away. And anytime we find any formula which is unstable, we remove it promptly. In fact, by the way, Protocol X is stable. It's stable mostly, but of about 1,000 boxes, we receive about 1 to 2 boxes where it gets cakey. And there's a special reason for it, because we don't add fillers. So you can add anti-caking agents like silicon dioxide or magnesium stearate to prevent it from caking. But we don't do that because we don't want unnecessary things inside the formula. So yes, what goes inside has to be stable. You can't just add anything. And this is where you need a knowledge of someone who's a chemist, someone who's been formulating for long, to understand the interaction. Also, type of molecule, is it hygroscopic or something else? You'll also need to understand the taste profile, because, for example, magnesium glycinate tastes extremely bad. You can't really add it. The moment you add it, it's very difficult for the blend to be consumer friendly. Hence, you'll mostly find magnesium in capsules rather than powders.
All right. I had no idea about the magnesium glycinate taste.
Very, very interesting. Just open a magnesium glycinate.
I learned something.
Sure.
All right. Wayland, do you have any interesting questions?
Yeah, there are a few from the audience, and there are also a few from myself. So, but I will ask one from myself first. And so you are in the industry and your company produces a lot of supplements. Are you taking any?
Oh yeah, this is a daily ritual for me. See, personally, it was just before this. I was in food supply chain when I couldn't really succeed with the business, but it also told me that I have to be a high performer, and to be a high performer, there are many more interventions that you have to take. Exercise being one part, endurance sport being another, but supplement is also another part. So all of the products that we sell are also products that we also consume. Protocol X is my daily drink, so I always carry this bottle. Every morning you'll find me drinking this. Before 12, I'll have this. This is so coffee, then this. LPC Neuro, I love the product, and anyone who's tried it will know how good it is. Neuro X, vitamin D3. I am actually low on vitamin D3, so I'm not taking it for the sake of taking, but I know my numbers, and hence I supplement with vitamin D3. Magnesium is, if I don't take magnesium, with the training I do, it's very difficult to sleep at night because the whole body will pain, even if you stretch out a lot. So each has a function, and it's just that supplements has a bad name. It should not be treated as a shortcut, but it is just serve a certain purpose.
Yes, so this leads to a question from the audience, is that if you are taking more than one supplement, would you afraid that the effects may interact with others, or like there's just no effect at all?
So not necessarily. Protocol X is a blend with 20 plus ingredients, and we take it at one go. The only benefit is we know how it interacts, so we've made sure of that. You can always space it out by a certain amount, and then let's say half an hour to 1 hour, and then you're fine. You also have to understand, are the products oil soluble or oil soluble or water soluble? Water soluble you can take anytime. Oil soluble should be with food. For example, krill oil preferably should be with food. Then there are certain vitamins which should be taken with food and not on empty stomach.
Yes. Well, actually, I'm also taking a few myself, and I don't really have this worry. So, but of course, it's always nice to go back to the mechanism of the drugs and the supplements to see how likely they may interact with each other.
The other thing is, magnesium glycinate is very interesting example. You can take it throughout the day, or you can take it at night. If you take it throughout the day, you won't be sleepy. You'll just be relaxed and go on with your day. You'll not have any body pain. But if you take it at night, it will help you fall asleep much faster. For most people, yes, it does not work for 100% of the people, but it makes you sleep much more deeper, or let's say helps you fall asleep much sooner.
Yes, I agree, because I'm taking that too.
Perfect.
Yes. Okay, the next question is that you also mentioned that some supplements are water soluble and some are fat soluble. And here's one question from the audience asking about the EPA and DHA. How much of this, well, is specifically, probably more specifically to the LPC DHA, that's how much of these are actually crossing the blood-brain barrier?
Okay, this answer I don't have. I'll be very honest. This is an answer we are also trying to figure out. But I'll tell you the number that we have from the studies done on mice. 2 times more DHA and EPA was deposited on the brains, inside the brain of the mice. So that's a study that we have. We're also trying to figure out other ways in which we can give you a very real number of how does it behave with the human brain. And this is also a challenge of anything related to the brain. You can't just poke anything inside. We're exploring the helmets that measure electrical signals in your brain. So all of those are being done. So it will be an indirect estimation. It won't be direct. But the 3 studies that I've told you are will be from that. You'll get some answers to that. But the answers are a lot more of, okay, DHA will have these benefits, so you're seeing these results in terms of memory. Also, end of the day, everyone cares about the real benefits rather than just more DHA going in the brain. So it will be a mix of these two.
Yeah, and I agree. And also this may be done with animal study, or like measure the cognition outcomes directly. That could be a good surrogate.
Yeah. There are some numbers on that which are published.
Yes. So, and then here comes to another question about RCTs. One is criticizing. Well, I'm not sure whether it is criticizing or not.
It's fine.
As I said, that it's good that the company thinks about the science, but their own studies seem to be short and not gold standard clinical trial. How would you comment on this?
Is a question here? Can I read through it? Okay, I don't see the question, but tell me if I understood the question correctly. The study that we're currently doing is not enough, and we should do more. Is that the question?
Yeah. One person asking, the studies sponsored by a commercial company and is usually too short.
Okay, so it's principle of the specific company what they decide. I can tell about what we do. When we made Protocol X, we wanted to get into studies, human studies. Beyond supplement, we are also looking at many more things. We're looking at wearables. We're looking at health platforms, creating health platforms. We're looking at medical interventions also, but that will be a different company altogether. So we're looking at this entire space holistically and not as a supplement company itself. And even when we started, the market is difficult, where having a strong scientific backing is very, very important. So the first study that we're doing, it started off with, okay, I'll tell you the internal what happened. And this is a study. So we got 50 people to sign up, 50 people signed up, 30 people went to the next stage. And by the time we started collecting samples, 12 people dropped off. So we had 17 people. And right now we're left with 13 people. So it's also, the longer the study is, the difficult also, it's even more difficult to continue it. So this is a good experience for us to figure out what went wrong. And the next study, we're planning on LPC, and we'll also extend the same study for Protocol X into a much larger study, for which we will look for partners as well, because running a study by yourself and your company of less than 10 people is extremely demanding. I've also gone and delivered blood from here to the lab to ensure that it happens. It's quite a difficult thing.
Yes, I agree. Since our team is also running clinical trial, I understand how challenging and how expensive, especially expensive, it is to run it. So then another question asking is that how would you consider to develop products like natural extracts, like antioxidants?
Yes and a no. We are not entirely into ingredient development. We work with the industry, the manufacturers. Two parts to it. One is there's an existing research going on and extract comes in. Some of these will be natural extract also. We do sell natural extracts, and how we select specific extract also depends on the results behind it. Just slightly digressing, curcumin, turmeric curcumin is quite well established. We work with the most published extract of that. Now, the second part of this is developing your own extracts. Yes, it's a long-term thing. It can't be done in a year. We are looking at a few developments, but the results will only come in maybe 2-3 years time, because once you develop something, that also has to go through testing, stability, a lot of other things. So it's almost like drug development cycle. I want to have my own developed ingredients and extracts, but that will take time, and I'll need to have more patience around it. For the stage right now, we work with established extracts.
Yeah, and also I know some products in your company, such as ergocyanin. It originally comes from the mushroom, and so but probably when you are producing it, I'm not familiar with industrial and manufacturing. So for ergocyanin, this kind of compounds originally from like I said, you can call it natural compound. Usually, how do you manufacture them?
Not always. So, for example, I'll give an example of cordyceps. You can get it from the nature, or you can cultivate it in the lab, essentially bioidentical. So it's not all, even though it's natural, but it may not always be natural. It could be lab cultivated. That also prevents any sort of what do you call it?
Pollution?
Yes. So you essentially get what you want. So
Yeah.
just produce that specific ingredient.
Yeah, I agree. And Well, here's another question from myself. It's very impressive that you were very physically active and you are very physically active and you do hallmarks. So do you find any supplements that help you to like improve your performance in hallmarks and any other physical training?
So I would say three things, and my life revolves around these. Protocol X, because it has got creatine, it has got NMM, AKG that keeps the energy high and helps me recover much faster. So if you go for a run or training, you get back on your feet in a day or two, and you can train again. So it allows frequency of training to be much more. And then magnesium at night helps you sleep and also prevent any pain or manage the pain. These are major. For my work side, I LPC Neuro, and now I'm trying one more, which is Neuro X. And then vitamin D. Vitamin D is very difficult to measure. I mean, you can measure it, but do you see the benefits of it? How do you see the benefits is something I've not figured out personally. So I just go by the number, and hence I supplement with vitamin D. Simple answer, Protocol X and magnesium.
I may not agree with the measurement of vitamin D. I think probably you may find a clinic or hospital that is able to check vitamin D level.
You can get the vitamin D levels, but how do you know it's benefiting you or not? For example, you at low vitamin D, slightly low vitamin D versus higher vitamin D, what are the changes you see is difficult to understand. You'll get the number, but to see that.
And we probably have I know that we have the reference amounts that's 50 nanomole per liter in blood sample is let's say okay level for vitamin D. Yes. Okay, then this comes to the next question from the audience is that okay, for many people that you were taking supplements because you want to higher performance in exercise and better quality of life. But how about for patients that may be in special needs? For example, this participants asking, can someone with an autoimmune condition taking the Protocol X?
They can. So here's the thing. Everyone has their own life goals. My life goal is physical performance, but Protocol X is made for a much wider group of audience. In fact, our bigger consumers are in the age group of 40 to 60 and 70 with multiple health concerns. Ideally, if they are on medication, it's best to consult with a doctor, but the way it's formulated, it's safe. It's safe, so you can always try and see how it goes. If there's any medication, please split it away. Don't take it along with the medication, maybe 1 hour away. Otherwise, it should be okay.
And we don't have too much time left, but this can be an open question for all of us. That is, at what age should we start taking supplements? Okay, how about you? What age did you start taking supplements?
I started taking about 4 years back, and I always tell people until you're 30, you don't need, but then you will supplement with protein if you're bodybuilding in your 20s. You can take magnesium, or if your vitamin D levels are low, you will supplement. So it becomes ideally safe 30 plus, but before that, if there's a specific need, please do.
Yeah, Kamil, how about you?
I started around 20, and I think you try to safely extrapolate from studies and be reasonable. That's my attitude.
Yeah. So is there any age range or any condition that you would recommend someone to start taking supplements?
The last question, Shan. Make it count.
Any specific... I think even before taking supplements, just get a blood test done. You will understand how you are doing. Also, be very clear about what your goals are. And for a young person, it would be could be energy. For an older person, it could be many more things. Could be right from memory to supporting heart and a lot of other things. So just be clear about what you are looking for and where you need help. And there's good amount of research available, and you can decide what to start with.
Thank you so much. That's all from me.
All right. Thank you, Shan, and thank you, Weilan. Whatever you're taking, it must be working because your skin is glowing today. So I just want to close with two announcements before we end. So for those who want to learn more and go very deep on longevity, there will be a Healthy Longevity Talent Incubator on the 29th of June to the 10th of July. So you can find the information online. And also an important announcement. So our next Healthy Longevity webinar will be moved from the 2nd to the 16th of April because of an NUS holiday. And the topic will be Transgender Perspectives on Healthy Longevity by Professor Krit Pongpirul, if I'm not mispronouncing. And we'll show you a teaser at the end of this. And thanks, everyone.
I'm Jakim Latzamalaya, a PhD student and research associate at the National University of Singapore. I've always been curious about what aging really means. We all know what it feels like to grow older. The years go by, small changes happen, but inside the body, something else gradually changing too. The change has to do with resilience, our ability to recover after stress.